In 450 BC, ancient Greek historian Herodotus stood before a structure so massive that he declared it surpassed even the Great Pyramid. He claimed to have walked through 3,000 rooms filled with hieroglyphs and paintings, connected by endless corridors that could trap visitors for days. Then this colossal wonder vanished from history, buried beneath Egyptian sands for over 2,000 years. In 2008, ground-penetrating radar finally detected what Herodotus described, a vast underground complex stretching beneath the desert at Hawara. The question is, what are Egyptian authorities desperately trying to keep hidden down there? The wonder that surpassed the pyramids. When Herodotus visited Egypt in the 5th century BC, he had already seen the greatest architectural marvels of the ancient world. Nothing prepared him for what he encountered at Hawara, 60 miles south of modern-day Cairo. Standing before this massive structure, Herodotus wrote words that would echo through history. "This I have actually seen, a work beyond words. For if anyone put together the buildings of the Greeks and display of their labors, they would seem lesser in both effort and expense to this labyrinth. Even the pyramids are beyond words, yet the labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids." The ancient historian described a colossal temple complex containing exactly 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below. The upper chambers overwhelmed visitors with intricately carved walls covered in hieroglyphs and paintings depicting gods, pharaohs, and sacred rituals. Massive white stone columns supported roofing made from single stone slabs, while courtyards and corridors created an endless maze of passages. But it was what lay beneath that truly captured the imagination. Herodotus desperately wanted to explore the underground levels, but Egyptian priests refused him entry. They told him these subterranean chambers contained the burial vaults of kings who built the labyrinth, along with tombs of sacred crocodiles worshipped in the region. The Greek geographer Strabo, who visited 4 centuries after Herodotus, confirmed the structure's incredible scale. He described it as a large palace composed of as many palaces as there were formerly nomes. Referring to Egypt's administrative districts, the complex featured 12 courtyards corresponding to Egypt's 12 regions, with each section dedicated to worshiping local gods and administering justice. Other ancient writers added their testimonies. Diodorus Siculus called it one of Egypt's most remarkable monuments. Pliny the Elder claimed it served as the model for the legendary Labyrinth of Crete. Pomponius Mela described passages so complex that visitors required guides to prevent becoming hopelessly lost. This wasn't simply a tomb or temple, it was an administrative and religious center, bringing together representatives from across Egypt. Each division had their own section within the complex, complete with courts, chambers, and shrines dedicated to regional deities. The labyrinth stood adjacent to a pyramid built by Amenemhat III, the last great pharaoh of Egypt's 12th dynasty, around 1850 BC. While the pyramid was impressive, ancient visitors consistently reported that the labyrinth itself was the true wonder, a structure so vast and complex that it defied comprehension. The mysterious disappearance. For over 1,000 years, the Labyrinth of Egypt remained one of the most visited sites in the ancient world. Travelers journeyed from across the Mediterranean to witness this architectural marvel. Then, around the Roman period, all mention of the structure simply ceased. What happened to a building complex so massive that ancient historians claimed it surpassed the pyramids? The mystery deepened when later explorers arrived at Hawara expecting to find remnants of this colossal structure, only to discover virtually nothing above ground except a crumbling mud brick pyramid. In 1843, Prussian Egyptologist Karl Lepsius conducted the first serious archaeological investigation at Hawara. His team discovered brick chambers and foundations around the pyramid, but nothing resembling the massive stone complex described by ancient sources. Lepsius concluded that the labyrinth had been systematically demolished, with its limestone blocks quarried away to build other structures. The breakthrough came in 1888, when legendary archaeologist Flinders Petrie arrived at Hawara. Petrie's excavations uncovered enormous stone foundations buried beneath centuries of sand and debris. These foundations stretched over 300 meters long and 200 meters wide, large enough to accommodate the temples of Karnak and Luxor combined. Petrie discovered scattered fragments, massive granite columns carved with palm and lotus designs, limestone statues of gods Sobek and Hathor, and granite shrines containing statues of Amenemhat III. The evidence pointed to a structure of incredible scale and sophistication, but Petrie reached the same conclusion. The labyrinth had been completely dismantled. The demolition likely occurred during the Ptolemaic period, around 300 BC. The Greek rulers who succeeded Alexander the Great launched massive building projects throughout Egypt and needed enormous quantities of cut stone. The labyrinth, with its precisely fitted limestone blocks and granite columns, represented an irresistible source of pre-cut building materials. Historical records suggest much of the stone was transported to Arsinoe, a Ptolemaic city built to honor Queen Arsinoe II. The systematic removal of the labyrinth's materials explains why such a massive structure could vanish so completely from the archaeological record. But Petrie made a crucial assumption that would later prove questionable. He believed the stone foundations he discovered were the base of the labyrinth, with the entire superstructure removed. This interpretation suggested that nothing remained except scattered fragments and foundation stones. For over a century, Petrie's conclusion stood as the definitive explanation for the labyrinth's disappearance. The structure had been magnificent, but human greed had erased it from history. Case closed, or so it seemed. The 2008 revelation. In February 2008, a team of Belgian and Egyptian researchers arrived at Hawara with sophisticated ground-penetrating radar equipment. The Mataha Expedition, led by Louis de Cordier and scientists from the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, aimed to settle the labyrinth mystery once and for all. What they discovered would challenge everything archaeologists thought they knew about the site. The radar scans revealed a vast grid-like pattern of walls and chambers buried 8 to 12 meters below the surface, precisely where Petrie had found his stone foundations. Instead of finding empty sand beneath Petrie's foundations, the team detected enormous underground structures made of high-resistance material consistent with granite stone. The pattern showed regular geometric chambers connected by corridors, exactly matching ancient descriptions of the labyrinth's layout. The implications were staggering. What if Petrie had been wrong? What if instead of being the base of a demolished structure, those foundations were actually the roof of a labyrinth that remained perfectly preserved underground? Dr. Mohammed Abbas summarized their findings. At a depth of 8 to 12 meters, there is a grid structure of gigantic size made of very high resistivity material like granite stone. This states the presence of a colossal archaeological feature below the labyrinth foundation zone of Petrie, which has to be reconsidered as the roof of the still existing labyrinth. The discovery promised to revolutionize understanding of ancient Egyptian architecture. Here was potential evidence of a 3,000-room complex, perfectly preserved beneath the desert, filled with hieroglyphs and paintings that could provide unprecedented insights into ancient Egyptian civilization. Then something unexpected happened. The Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities issued a directive halting all communication about the discovery, citing national security concerns. The official results were never released, and further investigation was indefinitely postponed. The cover-up and ongoing crisis. The suppression of the Mataha Expedition's findings raises disturbing questions. Why would evidence of an ancient labyrinth pose a national security threat? What could be hidden in those underground chambers that Egyptian officials desperately want to keep secret? Louis de Cordier waited 2 years for Egyptian authorities to make the findings public. When it became clear they had no intention of doing so, he launched his own website in 2010 to share the radar data with the international community. The situation has only deteriorated since 2008. Rising groundwater levels are gradually destroying whatever remains of the underground structure. Saline water is seeping into the chambers, dissolving limestone walls and eroding priceless artifacts that may have survived for over 2,000 years. Ben van Kerkwijk describes the current crisis. The discovery was suppressed, and today the incredible potential of this site is being slowly and irrevocably destroyed by both inaction by authorities and by the water table in the area that's rising. Modern satellite imagery and additional radar studies have provided further confirmation of underground structures. The evidence continues mounting that a massive underground complex lies beneath Hawara, slowly being destroyed while authorities prevent proper archaeological investigation. Several theories attempt to explain the official reluctance to excavate. Some suggest the chambers might contain artifacts that contradict accepted historical timelines. Others propose the structure could reveal evidence of advanced ancient technologies that authorities prefer to keep hidden. What lies beneath? The Lost Labyrinth represents more than just another archaeological mystery. It potentially holds keys to understanding ancient Egypt's most prosperous period. If the 3,000 chambers described by Herodotus exist beneath Hawara, they could contain the most extensive collection of ancient Egyptian art, hieroglyphs, and artifacts ever discovered. The labyrinth was a functioning administrative center where representatives from across Egypt gathered for religious ceremonies and governmental business. Each of the 12 divisions would have maintained detailed records, contracts, legal documents, and religious texts. The underground chambers were specifically designated as burial vaults for kings who built the labyrinth and sacred crocodiles worshipped in the region. These areas might contain intact royal burials with treasures rivaling those found in Tutankhamun's tomb. The hieroglyphic inscriptions covering the walls could include historical records, administrative documents, religious texts, and artistic depictions that fill major gaps in our understanding of ancient Egyptian society. The Middle Kingdom period represents a high point of Egyptian civilization that remains poorly understood. Recent technological advances offer hope that the labyrinth might eventually be explored without causing damage. Robotic systems could navigate passages and document chambers without human intrusion. Advanced imaging techniques could reveal inscriptions through non-invasive scanning. The story of the Lost Labyrinth ultimately represents humanity's relationship with its own past. Here lies a structure that ancient people considered more magnificent than the pyramids. Yet modern bureaucracy prevents us from understanding what our ancestors accomplished. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt remains buried beneath Hawara's sands, slowly being destroyed by time and rising waters, while authorities maintain their mysterious silence. What secrets lie hidden in those 3,000 chambers that officials desperately want to keep sealed? Until Egyptian authorities allow proper excavation, we can only wonder what revelations about our past wait just meters beneath the desert floor. Hit that like button if you want to see more buried mysteries uncovered, and subscribe for the latest discoveries that challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations.